All right, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, all right, sweet. Today's the first in what we hope and expect is a series of steps forward for the continued growth and success of athletics here at the University of Great Falls. Not only are we bringing on a strong leader with a wealth of knowledge and to guide our department, but that leader will for the first time be a vice president position at the school. The hiring of Dave Gantt as the Vice President for Athletics at the University of Great Falls was the result of a 2-month-long search from the university's Athletic Director Search Committee, and the final hiring decision was made by our new school president, Dr. Aretz. Because our release about Mr. Gantt's hire has been public for a few weeks now, I will get into a long review of his experience and his resume. I will say that Dave has had over 25 years of success and experience at the high school, NAIA, and NCAA Division I levels of athletics, including great success as a Division I volleyball coach and a well-respected tenure as the athletic director at the Montana State University Northern. He's also an alumnus of UGF, back when it was still the College of Great Falls, and he has been keeping a close eye on the department over the last few years because of his love for this institution in this city. I'll turn it over to Dave in just a minute. He'll give an opening statement, and then we'll open it up for questions from the media. We'll then make our outgoing ADs, Caleb Schaefer and Argos available for questions you may have for them about the hiring process. Before we go any further, though, on behalf of the athletic department, I'd like to recognize Caleb and Argos for a very selfless 1.5 years of running the department, while also executing their duties as full-time head coaches. It was a job neither of them particularly wanted, but were both willing to take because it's what the university needed. They did a great job of serving this school while bridging the gap between full-time athletic directors. So thank you, Caleb and Argos. All right, well, without any further delay, we're excited to officially introduce the University of Great Falls' new Vice President for Athletics, Mr. Dave Ehnes.
Thank you very much, Josh. Standing outside, the world got a little smaller yet. As I looked in here, I saw coaches that I haven't seen for years. Good morning to you. Speaking with Coach Lyman, I said, you know, if it weren't for some people early in my life that directed me this way, I wouldn't have been, today may not have happened. When I was a youngster, my grandfather said to me, you gotta go work for Herb up in Glacier Park because you're gonna get into trouble if you don't get squared away. And so Coach Lyman said, Herb Talkie and my dad were good friends. And the world got a little smaller again this morning. So that's fabulous. I'm overly excited today. This has been, normally this happens a little sooner in the process, so I would have already had this done and been deeply involved in doing some things in the department. But as I was talking to Caleb and Arun earlier today, it's kind of like transitions don't always happen where it's good on both ends. So I wanted to make sure that my departure from Gonzaga was positive, and it ended up being very much a positive scenario. An assistant coach and my second assistant coach, both of them were retained. One is now the head coach, the other is her assistant. So that continuity was pretty important to me after investing what I had there. And that continues, which is great. And then to make this transition, it's kind of like you have your foot in two different boats. You know, you're trying to make sure they're both going the same direction, because if you've ever tried that with two paddle boards and they start doing this, you're going to get wet. Or if they start doing this, you're going to get wet. And so far, I've stayed dry in this whole deal. So that's a coup that I'm pretty proud to announce. I'd really like to thank Sister Lucille Dean, who is also an alum of the University of Great Falls and the College of Great Falls. And her work in the interim, along with Arunas and Caleb and various and sundry other people and the leadership team that come together to make this work as well as it can. It's a slippery slope, but I appreciate their efforts leading to today. I also want to thank Dr. Aretz, and I have to pause there quickly to make sure I say that correctly. He told me, Dave, it's really easy. carrots without the seed. So I have to process that. Okay, let's see, carrots without the seed. Carrots. There you go. So now you won't ever goof it up like I did. Aretz, no, it's carrots, Dr. Aretz. Anyway, I knew with an opportunity to meet with him, I knew at the very, very end of our conversation, having done my homework prior to the conversation, that we were going to charge ahead with a very service-oriented mindset and develop not only student athletes, but a leadership component within the entirety of what he said would be the university. And he said, and your job, and he pointed directly at me, is to make sure it happens over there in that building, which I'm all for. So as we move ahead, we're going to be competitive. We're going to make sure our student athletes graduate, and we're going to follow those 3 C's that I talked about earlier. And we're going to win in the classroom, we're going to win in the community, and we're going to win in the court, in the arena, on the field, wherever it takes us, to do things the right way. And we're going to do that with a lot of pride and a lot of bringing back community to the university that's out there just waiting to engage with us. So I'm pretty excited about this whole process. And that leads me to this. It's going to be very process-oriented. With the advent of Providence's help and with a little fine-tuning, where I'm not coaching like these 2 gentlemen have had to do with balance, we can go a little deeper with the specifics of running an athletic department. I've already looked at schedules. I've already looked a little bit at some personnel things. I've already looked at, I'm not officially on board until July 1st, which means there's a weekend that comes up after that, which means probably July 5th. So I'm, pardon the phrase in my vernacular, I'm chomping at the bit a little bit to get going here. So my thanks to everyone who's been so supportive in this process, and I can't tell you just exactly how excited I am to be here, but I think you'll be able to see that in my day-to-day actions and how I operate. Management by walking around a lot. So I'm not in the office as often as I probably could be, but I should be out there doing what I need to do. And it's exciting right now to see that brand new soccer field getting ready for some stripes, because it won't be too long before that thing is out, which is great. So the first question is, who would like to buy that and put their name on it? Do we have any takers in here this morning? Not yet? Okay. So, and I have to say this too. Tom Wiley, not to, no disrespect or unfair here, but I think the last time I saw him, I had to yell upstairs at he and my son to be quiet as I was trying to sleep. So now he's red. Because neither he nor I ever thought a day like this would come. And looking at me, I'm like going, oh boy. That's not the Tom Wiley that I knew. Oh yeah, so it's a small world, isn't it? So questions?
No disrespect taken. Right? I don't even know much as I feel on the sports reporter. I can't do that. I actually feel free to come back here, especially being a alum and then really kind of seeing where UGF has gone and where you're trying to take it.
Well, I think some kudos have to go out to Gary Ehnes from my perspective of just kind of going out, charging and getting after it and getting some things done to make the window to the university now a little more available via athletics. There's a lot of work as an athletic director that goes on behind the scenes. And I think that I've got to give him a shout out as well, because he set the stage to go get it done. Just get out there and get after it. So with that growth mindset, and that's really the big key for me. Everywhere I've been, everything I've done, there has to be a growth mindset on the other side for me to be engaged with what I'm doing. So that's what we're going to continue to do here. And I thought there were a lot of things that were in the right place administrative support, Providence Health, great coaches that I interacted with only one day, but I'm pretty good because I've been recruiting for a long time. I'm pretty good at looking at some intangibles that would indicate that we're on the right track with some people who want to come together and get some things done. So that's all really good. And this is a place that, again, had I not come to Montana and still stayed in Southern California and some of all that craziness we had to deal with growing up, who knows what I would be doing. So I have had it in my career to give back to athletics as a result of what it had done for me. And along the way, you meet some characters, like Thomas. The AD at a major university now probably hasn't coached. They're a business person. And they may have been an athlete, a student athlete, but that's years ago. And we know how much has changed in the last 10 years. My gosh, how much hasn't changed in the last 30. So I think that this mindset I have that's growth oriented, let's go get it done, and the fact that I can look at you in your practice and not know a thing about lacrosse, but I can look at coach, and you're hiding already behind that big step. All right. I can look at coach and figure out whether or not there's engagement with the student athletes. I can tell. And so whatever we need to work on, we work on. But as a coach, it's not all dollars and cents. It's process. Do we put them in the best opportunity to be successful? Do we provide them with that environment? Because I will tell you, my experience as a coach, and your experience as coaches, you can do everything just right. And something will happen, and you'll lose by 1 point. It's just the way it is. We get frustrated with that? Yes. But that's not what defines us. What's going to define us is the internal process that we go about to get them in a position to be successful. And if we manage most of those variables, that will happen over and over and over again. And I think if you look at my track record coaching, we've been able to do that. At every stop, we've taken something that wasn't working well, and I don't mean this is not working well. I think it's working really well given the scenario. But we take something and make it better. And that's what we're going to do. So does that help? Yeah. All right. All right.
Dave, I know you said you've done your homework on this position. Are there any immediate opportunities for growth or things you want to do on day one that are in your mind right now?
Well, I just traded my team at Gonzaga, and we're going to do a little bit of this today with my new team. And that's what we're going to be. We're going to be Coach Gantt's new team in the athletic department, which I think, because I don't have a coaching hat to wear now, I can be a resource for coaches here. Basically, I understand your pain. I understand your pain. How can we make this better? That's an immediate opportunity because I think that, and again, I'm not discrediting anyone when I say this, but I think it's really difficult being in both a coaching and an administrative role. And I've done it for a while since Gary's illness and have compensated in a great way. But now, again, I can go deeper with that, and that's where I'm starting, is with our coaching staff. So that is an immediate for me, even though I'm not officially hired here yet.
You've already been an AD at a Frontier Conference school. Can you just talk a little bit about what it means to return to Frontier Conference?
Well, first of all, there are going to be concerns and certain challenges with any conference in the country, whether it's a Frontier Conference, the West Coast Conference, the Big Sky, whatever it happens to be. Ours are unique to this conference, and I think there's an ongoing challenge to be successful, and it's a funding piece. I know how hard we worked at Gonzaga to make sure that we were funded well enough to compete at that level. I sense in conversations already with coaches, just informally, that they have already a very good sense of how to pinch a penny and make it work. I don't mind pinching pennies, but I certainly don't want to be in a position where we have to do that forever and ever and ever and ever. We need to be fiscally prudent, but gosh, I sure like a buffer. And I think the Frontier Conference is challenged, especially, and I'll make this, especially the state schools, with having to make that work. I'm not advocating that we expand. I'm just advocating that we do really good things with what we have, and those things will naturally get better. We include the community, we include the classroom, and all of our faculty and staff here, we get them on board with this piece of the program that is not an informal education, but in terms of credits for classes toward graduation, probably not a lot of that comes from our department, but certainly the leadership piece is woven in there so that they become that kind of person who at least can lead themselves. Frontier Conference champions of character, all of those things. We're closer to dealing with those things right now here than we were in Oregon.
Anything else?
You know, you mentioned, well, obviously with your experience being a coach at Gonzaga, how do you kind of saying the same thing which you mentioned, in a different response, how do you feel that as the challenge, do you feel like you have an immediate connection with your coaches that are sitting here in this audience and kind of their needs? And I mean, what kind of struggles did you have as a coach when you were at Gonzaga? How do you feel that you can relate here to maybe help improve, their experience and the ability to help their student athletes?
Good question. I think that when you look at this comparison, University of Great Falls and Gonzaga University, you're talking about two private Catholic institutions, talking about relatively small student bodies on a relative scale. There are 5,000 plus graduate students in Gonzaga, and we're competing in this conference that ranges anywhere from University of Portland at 4,500 to BYU at, what, 35,000 now, something like that. We have to be pretty well connected and pretty much in symmetry to do what we do. I think that the way I was administered at Gonzaga leads me to the point where it's been more defined for me how this should operate than I was ever allowed experience at a state institution. It's relationship oriented, coaches to coaches. How can I best help you? There are a lot of individual conversations, as I've had with my supervisors at Gonzaga, to figure out what suits you best. What are you like? Rodeo coach isn't the same guy as the cross-country coach, isn't the same guy as the volleyball coach, isn't the same person as the wrestling coach. Yes, we're all in athletics, but there are varying degrees of personalities and challenges within our teams that we coach. There are going to be varying degrees of personalities and skill sets within the coaches that I work with. I just want to be a resource. I want to be a resource for the coaches, and I don't want to coach. I'm not going to get in that business. I don't know anything about the X's and O's of lacrosse, and I might later on, but I don't now. I really don't know about soccer. Some of it I do, but I'm not saying a word to the other coaches either. I'm just going to be a resource, and I'm going to go see if I can find someone to buy the soccer. Okay. Well, maybe Fox News does. Nobody's out of bounds on this deal. Fox Sports Complex. You call it, you work on that. Yeah, he's got a CBS line going. Does that help your question?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
That's it.
Okay, I will say this. You will find me to be far more comfortable one-on-one and far more engaging one-on-one than I might be in this setting right now. Because that's the way I'm used to. I'm used to coaching, and that's one-on-one, in my opinion. And so that's going to be an interesting dynamic. I don't know if we're used to that or not, but we'll see it happen. Really? Okay.
All right, thanks.